So hey, After Charge is a 3v3 competitive game in which one side is made of invisible robots and the other side is made of invincible guards. You want to try it? You can find it on Steam and Xbox One.
Hello guys and welcome back. Welcome back to this week's episode. Yes guys, my name is Bam Havoc. Welcome. As always, joining me is Draconis, and we have a very special guest for you guys today. Yes, all our guests are special. One of the developers for the game After Charge. Yes, Drac, say hi.
Ooh, yeah. I had to do some kind of awesome lead up for Laurent, who will be joining us from Chainsawesome Games.
Hello. How is everyone?
I think I scared Bam away.
I swear to God, Laurent, it's a pain, really. He doesn't know how to introduce himself properly. It's like someone's peeling your eyelids with razor blades. Really, it is.
That's a bit intense.
He over the top, man. You couldn't just say, hello, good evening, how are you? No. Too much, mate, too much. How are you tonight, Laurent?
I'm pretty good. It's a big week, so I'm pumped.
It is a very big week.
But I'm doing good.
Good to hear that. We got some questions for you, and we'd like to ask them. And the first one, Drac has on the tip of his tongue.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's start out with some of the background questions to get a little bit of an idea more about you and Chainsawesome Games. So where exactly in the world are you, and how many people make up the development team?
We're based in Quebec City, Canada. And our development team is as of now, 9 people.
And how did you guys get into making games, and more specifically, this particular game?
Well, the studio isn't new. We started off in 2012, so we've had 2 projects before that. How the studio was formed, it's a long time ago. Most of us worked at another studio in Quebec City called Frima Studio, and decided to go on our own. And we started working on After Charge following a game jam we did in 2015 that gave birth to Electric Panic, which was a game that's pretty similar to what you see After Charge right now, but in a very different shape. It wasn't 3D, it wasn't online or anything, but the mechanics were there. And since it was fun to begin with, we decided to build on that and bring that prototype developed in a game jam into a full-fledged game. So we grew the team quite a bit. We're only 3 at that moment, and now we're 9.
Yeah, when I saw this at PAX last year, PAX West is where I got a chance to play it and to talk to you a little bit. That was one of the things that I thought was really cool. Is it was you see a lot of folks that bring out different types of shooting games, but they don't always necessarily bring something new to the table. And the idea for how each of the teams are distinguished from each other was really neat. Can you talk a little bit more about After Charge specifically and how the game works, what the game mechanics are?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we know it's a very different shooter than what you can find on the market, because maybe one of the reasons it's because it wasn't a shooter at the start. So After Charge is a 3v3 competitive shooter in which one side is made of invisible robots, like almost permanently invisible, and the other team is made of invincible guards. So they're completely invincible and vulnerable to any kind of damage. So how can these mechanics work together is, of course, it's not the same goal as in many other shooters, online games. The goal is not to kill all the enemy team or make the most points. So you have the invisible robots, their goal is to destroy 6 things that are on the map. They need to stealth around the map and destroy those things we call extractors. You need to punch them to pieces, and that's how they win. If they manage to do it, they win. If they get stopped by the other team, whose goal is to take all the 3 robots down, they win.
Yeah, I noticed that some of the matches I've played, folks seem to have some strategies at times where they take down a robot and then they're pushing the robot closer to one of these batteries in an attempt to try and keep the teammates from getting allowing the other robots to get them back up.
Yeah, we have a lot of kind of a pretty unique mechanics in our game. So one that I didn't mention, which is pretty critical to how the game is played, is that the robots, they when they're taken down, they're not really out of the game. They're just shut down for until one of their ally comes around and revives them. They need their allies' support to get back into the game. So when you have when you're dead and you can always be revived. You're always kind of in the game. And as the defenders, the one with the guns trying to take down all 3 robots, of course your main priority is to make sure that when you manage to take a robot down, it doesn't get back up. So part of the game is really to make sure that you set up kind of a perimeter around the dead robot, make sure that their allies cannot get to him.
So what kind of challenges did you guys run into when you were working on balancing this? Because I know, some of the other things we maybe haven't touched on yet is, if the robots get a little too close to the defenders, there's like a little tether that appears and makes them visible.
Yeah.
Plus, they also become visible while they're attacking the battery. So, like, what other things like that did you guys, what kind of challenges did you run into with regards to trying to balance these two kinds of very different mechanics in a game together?
It's still, I would say that balancing the game is still, to this day, still hard. It's an ever-changing balance, these kinds of game. But we know that it's especially hard since our 2 sides they have completely different sets of characters and different abilities. Pretty much any of the mechanics have been a challenge. All the mechanics have been a challenge to a certain extent. I think the one that was really the hardest was the revive. And we stuck to it. Like initially, the robots were able to revive their allies with no kind of cooldown and no limits. And it also bring both parties back up to full health. So it was fun, but it was a bit overpowered. We tweaked a lot of things around that mechanic, making it a bit less strong, but then at some point it was not strong enough. Then we added that when you get revived, you're slowly getting back to full health instead of instantly. And then we added a short cooldown when you get taken down as a robot. You can't be revived for a very short window of time, like 1.5 seconds. So where it's all about tweaking the little statistics, because at the core, that mechanic was fun. So there were no way we were going to be removing it. It was just about making it more fair and more fun.
So tell us there, Laurent, the characters. Could you please just step by step go through each character and what their abilities are, please? Like, there's like 10 different characters?
Yeah. There's 5 different characters on the 2 sides. So yeah, a total of 10. So when you're playing the defenders, you're playing closer to what we could call a regular shooter. So the characters you see in there are closer, if not identical, but closer to other FPS heroes. You can see you have a striker who's mostly expert at dealing a lot of damage and controlling areas. Like he has a grenade and that reveals area, and airstrike that deals immense amount of damage in a certain area after a short time. So he's really about range damage. Then you have a liquidator, the second character we put in the game, who's equipped with mines he can place here and there on the map that gives intel. Like, that one robot got through a certain corridor because the mine exploded, and he's got a tracker shot he can attach to a robot. And if it's attached successfully, the 6 following tracker shot are going to land directly on that robot, wherever that robot might be in the map. So really useful to get some intels. Like if you shoot it, you have no idea what any of the robots are. If you shoot it, you at least have an idea of where that robot can be and where his allies could be. And then you have Builder, who's more, I'd say it's more of a support character. And he cannot heal because, well, the enforcers are invincible. But what he can do is place recharge stations for other enforcers to recharge their weapon, and he can also place walls to kind of create the perimeters I was talking earlier. So he can block off paths and create cages where you can keep a dead robot. Then you have Huntress, who's more about ranged immense damage. She deals a lot of damage with each of the shots, but they're really hard to hit. And she can put down traps that are doing more than the mines of the liquidator. They actually trap the robot in place for a few seconds. I think it's 2 seconds. And that's more than enough time to have it taken down. And then you have Tinker, who can place an extra protection on an extractor to tank an additional hit. And she can also place jump pads around the map so that enforcers can travel faster. And that's it for the enforcers. So you have characters that are more on dealing damage, other than more like providing tools for the enforcers to all play together. And for the robots, we approached the different characters a bit differently. We already felt that playing as a Workonic, that's the name of the Invisible robot, was already very different from other games you could kind of find on the market. We wanted to keep them as simple as possible. So they each have one unique ability, so that makes it kind of simpler. But these abilities can be used they can be used like defensively, but also offensively as well. You have Bubbles as the first character we ever made for that game. He can create a protective dome around him, so kind of like a bubble that's impenetrable by anything other than other Workonics. So if enforcers want to go through that bubble, they have to shoot it down. So it can provide additional cover for any kind of situation the robot might need one. And then there's Glitch, whose ability is about destroying devices. So anything that I mentioned on the enforcer side destroys mines, traps, walls, recharge station, anything of the kind. He can destroy it at infinite range. Then you have Turbo, who's about it was pretty simple. He runs super fast, so his ability triggers speed boost for short duration. It goes really, really fast. Really useful to get out of tricky situations, or like get a revive on an ally before getting caught. Then you have Cyclops, whose ability is to blind Enforcer and burn a part of their energy, the resource that allows them to shoot. So it's really useful. That's the most offensive of the abilities we have for the robot side. And then you have Buddy, who is absolutely the support healer of the robots. He has the ability to make another robot invulnerable for a short amount of time, and also heals his HP a little bit. So it's like the support that needs to stay kind of away from the battle and make these very, very useful calls to make one robot invulnerable just the time for it to run away and get back invisible. And that's pretty much it. All the characters, they have their own use, and it's more about how you play as a team than which character you pick.
Well, what I got from doing some research on the game and actually watching quite a few videos about it is that every character has a counter to a varying degree of or another.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely what we had in mind.
It's just that when I saw this game, I got a very sort of MOBA sort of feel to it, as long as sort of like a Battle Royale sort of feel. So I think it's like a sort of MOBA Battle Royale sort of team play effort type thing. Am I wrong with that sort of genre classification?
I really wouldn't put any reference to Battle Royale in our game in any way. It's really team focused. Well, I'd say that one thing that's different now that Apex has released, it's a squad based Battle Royale. So there's the squad idea that's very present in Aftercharge, because it's all about how you're gonna play it as a team of 3. But that's all there is to it in terms of Battle Royale. I'd say we're closer to a game like Team Fortress or Overwatch. So you have your team as an objective against one opposing team with an opposing objective.
Well, believe it or not, that's where I was going with it, really. My next question, that's what was like a segue into my next question, is have you guys felt any effect from Apex Legends launching? Because, believe it or not, Respawn launched this game out of the blue and blindsided almost everybody. So have you actually felt a bit of a pinch from them?
An immense influence. That's what we saw. We were wondering what happened on that Monday, and then it followed on the Tuesday, and it was that's gonna stay that way. And it was the release of Apex. I think it must have influenced a lot of online games. And I mean, that's cool. There's a new game in town, and a lot of players are having a blast with it. So I've got nothing against Apex, but yeah, in terms of marketing perspective, I had not planned it. It was not supposed to happen, but it happened. Like it came out, like you said, completely out of nowhere, and of course it made an influence. Aftercharge is a live game. Apex is a live game, so they clearly have an impact on us.
I don't mean to sort of pry, but I had to ask that question because you guys weren't the only ones affected by Apex Legends, and it's just nice to see how far a game that hasn't been butchered by a AAA publisher can actually go when it turns out to be a bloody good game.
Yeah. Well, right now it's the situation isn't that bad, but we really are focusing our efforts on that Steam free weekend. What Apex got on us, it's definitely they have a brand now. It's been picking up by a lot of big streamers, but most of all the game is free. So with the Steam free weekend, we're trying to hit that market of people who are hesitant. They want to try a game before actually getting more invested in it, and that's all fine. So using this, we should renew or breathe new life into Aftercharge, which is the goal.
They say the game's free, but it's not really, because if you want to look different and want to look cool cosmetically, right, you've got to pay, and it's not cheap, you know.
Yeah, but you don't have to. That's
true.
That's the beauty of free to play, right?
Yes, that's the beauty of it.
I have kind of maybe a side question a little bit. I know that with a game like this, it's not necessarily that there even needs to be anything like this, but did you guys develop any kind of background story or anything like that with regards to either any of the characters or the world that they exist in?
Just a little bit of it. We're not big on that. We are. I always say, and I made up that sentence, but I like it. That Chainsawesome Games, we make like mechanical games, so they're mechanically fun, but we don't put a lot into like lore and story because it's just not our cup of tea. But we did invent a little backstory that kind of explains why that conflict is happening, and each of the characters have a very, 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 very short kind of explanation of what's their role in that.
I asked because I wondered when you talk about how it's, you know, these people who are invulnerable versus these invisible robots, it started making me think of Asimov's laws of robotics, and how, you know, in a lot of sci-fi stuff where you see that robotics that look human, how they're almost ignored or invisible to the people, and yet because of the laws of robotics where they're not allowed to harm human beings, that would make the humans invulnerable. So I was curious if any of that.
And there's a bit of that, yeah. Well, how we worked, and it's pretty much how we always work. We find something that's just fun, and then we kind of invent a story or a setting that makes it make sense to a certain extent, and that made sense. The idea why the enforcers are invulnerable, it's just because the robots, they don't want to kill them. They're from the company that made those robots. They are, in a certain sense, they're their creators, so they don't want to kill the enforcers. They want to destroy what they've built, those structures, those extractors. Their goal is really get out of the way. I want to destroy those extractors. And in the other sense, why the enforcers are not actually making the robots explode into pieces, and instead they're just shot down, it's because they're company properties. So they don't want to destroy these creation that they've made. That will be the explanation. And why the invisible part, though, that's a bit like we had to make it make sense, but it doesn't a lot. It's just that these robots were made to build. They're workonics, they're worker robots. They were made to build those extractor stations. And while doing that, the idea was that they have a stealth device to go invisible all the time, so they cannot be spied on. So it's like for corporate espionage, like other energy company could see them build those extractor stations. I don't know if that makes sense. It does just a little bit, but that's our explanation of why they got that stealth system, because they're not actually warrior robots. Hello, my name is Laurent Mercure. I'm from Chainsawesome Games in Quebec City, Canada. I've been held hostage by someone from the West Coast and a British, and I'm scared. And you can help me if you go search for Aftercharge on Steam and Xbox One, and you purchase it. This would help me. Please.
Right, just to bring this back down to earth a bit, rather than talk about Asimov's Law of Robotics, I noticed that this game is priced at $19.99, right?
Yeah.
I think that is a very, very well-priced game that you guys have actually shown, because the graphics are great, the gameplay's good, the mechanics and the way it feels is good as well. I mean, I don't necessarily see any problems with it at all, and it's very well priced. I would have thought this would be sort of like a 25, maybe 28 sort of range of pricing. Why have you priced it so well? Are you guys trying to be competitive against anyone particularly?
Not in particular. We looked at the market. We looked at what our peers were saying, that other people that have launched game on Steam, and in general, what's making sense and what people are used to pay. And we didn't want to go for a very high price because we know that people will be like very criticizing on the actual content and stuff like that. So we decided to go for something that's kind of a low barrier to entry, and we targeted $20. I think it makes sense for price. Right now we're seeing a lot of people still think it's a lot. That's surprising us. But luckily it's on Steam, so of course there's going to be a discount at some point. We'll have one during their Steam free weekend as well.
You see, again, like I said before, I asked the question, I'm very surprised this game isn't more, because of what you're getting. You're getting almost limitless gameplay and game time and actually enjoyment out of it. The graphical quality and the gameplay, as well as the mechanics of it all, just, to me, shout out a more highly priced game, and you guys are offering for $20. I think that's quite well priced, but then that's me. So, opinions on video games is quite subjective. So, yeah, I'm probably wrong, but this leads into another question. Steam, alright?
Mm-hmm.
You've got mostly positive feedback on Steam, and you've also got some negative feedback on Steam. So, how do you decipher the negative comments from trolls and criticism? Because trolls are just numpties and nonces, whereas criticism, although being harsh, is genuinely there to help the game. How do you decipher between the good comment, the good negative, and the bad negative?
Right now, it's been quite easy to do, as we haven't got a lot of trolls, to be frank. All the negative feedback that we've got, either from Steam or that we read on Twitter, or we got on the Xbox reviews, most of them bring valid points, and we're like, you're right. If you were expecting X, this is actually Y. So like, I'm sorry that you thought this was that kind of game. I don't think we've made any false advertisement on the game. It's got this in content, and we feel it's enough. It's been quite easy because I'm always curious to know what people don't like about our game. So even the most trollish of trolls, I think I'll let a few pass by, but I've answered to most of them, and just to get to know more. They're probably gonna be answering me in a very trollish way, but at some point they just figure out that they're talking to another human being, and they transform their harsh comment into something that's more constructive. And I like that, because the biggest problem any game can have is that people play it, they don't enjoy it, and they don't say it anywhere. So you don't know what's going wrong. Right now, we kind of have a general idea of what is the recurrent negative feedback, and we're working exactly on fixing that.
You see, quite a few people have come back and said if there's a continual outcry to repair a specific issue, then that is definitely a problem. But one person's bad experience and then him being a dick about it, doesn't necessarily mean that's the lay of the land for everybody. It's more like the same issue keeps coming up repetitively. Then it's like, right, okay, we need to deal with this now because there's 6 different comments. So yeah, okay, that understands. Compassion and gratitude, I think, is what you just said there. So happy days.
Yeah, I'm always listening to what everyone has to say about our game. So when it's very negative, I wanna dig into it and kind of understand why that experience was so bad, and is it caused by the game or the expectations the player had before jumping into the game.
Well, your method of conveyance isn't necessarily a bad thing. You've got quite a few tutorials on your Steam page as well, and that's how I learned a lot about you guys and the game as well. So, talking about Steam being a platform, what other platforms are you releasing on?
Right now we're on Steam and on Xbox One. No, we're also on Green Man Gaming as well, on PC.
Okay, so are there any plans to go towards the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch?
The Nintendo Switch, yeah, it's well on the way. Should be ready this spring. It kind of already kind of works at the studio. We just need some more testing. There are some features that we've just added into the PC and Xbox One version, and we need to actually push on the Nintendo Switch version. It should be our next big push somewhere this spring. I think the fit with the console is pretty good, and the Nintendo Switch is hot right now, so it's definitely, I think it's going to be worth it. As far as PlayStation goes, that's a very dangerous territory for us because PlayStation doesn't naturally support crossplay. And since we know that most of our players are coming from Xbox One, since we're on Xbox Game Pass, that's our biggest influx of players. We want this pool of players to be playing with PC and playing with Nintendo Switch. And if they can't play with PlayStation, I think it would be it would be very dangerous to launch on that console. So I think for now we'll be passing on PlayStation.
You see, now that to me is a crying shame. You guys want to share your experience and your game with everybody that's out there on all multiple platforms, and yet there's some corporate bigwig denying you that pleasure.
Yeah, well, they're very they stick to traditions. That's how Sony has always worked, and they're great businessmen and businesswomen. So I guess it's the right call. If it's making money for them to not support it natively, I respect that call. But also they have to respect that some games are gonna be going away because of that lack of crossplay.
No, you see, I agree there as well. Totally, Drake, I'm cutting you off there. No, you see, there was a game called Paragon many, many moons ago that did have crossplay with PC, but not with Xbox. Now, it's a lot easier to go to Xbox from Steam and then go to Nintendo Switch. A lot of people have done that, but I've heard through quite a few people that there's a massive paywall to get onto the PlayStation initially. Is that paywall quite restrictive?
No, not that much. To my, it's been a while, to be honest, since I've worked on a game on a PlayStation platform. Since when I joined Chainsawesome Games, we've recently released on a Night Squad, which is only on Xbox One, and then After Charge is only on Xbox One in terms of consoles. So I don't quite remember, but I don't remember the PlayStation dev kits being so much more expensive than Nintendo Switch dev kits, which is the price you have to pay to start working on that build on the PlayStation version. So I don't think there is a bigger paywall to work on a PlayStation game than a Xbox or Nintendo Switch game.
Don't get me wrong, Drac. I'm totally for crossplay, and I'm totally for PlayStation users having a bit of a fight with Xbox and Nintendo Switch. But I'm just mortified this game's going to Nintendo Switch and not PlayStation because of some corporate people not narg and jargon. I'm mortified. I'm truly mortified.
Yeah, BAM is still having trouble accepting that Nintendo Switch is actually a console. So, but with regards,
it is a great console. Even if it's not very strong, there's a lot of things we needed to change, mostly on optimization on After Charge to make sure it works well on the Switch. It's not as powerful. It's definitely not as powerful as the Xbox and the PlayStation. But for our game, it wasn't that much of an obstacle because our game is quite light.
Well, and I know with the Switch, when you move the screen in certain games, like for instance in Zelda, if you've got the bow out and you move the screen, it changes where you aim in the game. Is that something that you guys implemented with Aftercharge as well, or no?
No, we're right now. If there's a big demand once we launch, we don't think it's going to be very complicated to change. But right now we're sticking to a kind of a twin stick approach, the same that we have on Xbox One. So you look around and then you shoot. We have kind of an auto aim, or I would say more of an aim assist on with a controller to kind of help you in hitting what you were wanting to hit, since there are no critical hitbox in Aftercharge. There's no headshots or anything, so it's not helping you like land a critical hit. It's just helping you shoot what you're intending to shoot. So that's on the Nintendo Switch version as well.
Okay, and then do you guys have already in place any kind of future plans, either new maps or characters or anything that you're looking to add to the game?
Yeah, quite soon. Again, probably somewhere this spring we'll have another map. But we also have 2 characters in the work. One that's almost finished, will be coming in the next update. It's a new Workonic called Cannon. He's going to be arriving in the next update, but that's kind of a big update. We have a lot of things in that content update, so I don't know exactly when that's going to land. Maybe early, mid-March.
Oh, okay, cool.
Now, I've got a question for Laurent. Laurent, now tell me something. You did mention that the Nintendo Switch... I'm going back a few things here because I'm just trying to get one over on Drac over here. You did mention that the Nintendo Switch isn't as powerful as the Xbox or PlayStation. Now, I'm not all about brute force processing power here, but in my eyes, right, the Nintendo Switch is nothing more than a tablet that Nintendo have branded with the console moniker. And they've made some fancy controllers for it. So could this game actually be fettled and forced onto iOS and Android?
Yeah, in theory, but that would need a lot of optimization work. I would agree with you that it's just, and that's actually a comment that we've heard here, especially from our someone that's responsible for optimization in the studio, is that Nintendo Switch is just tablet, but it's a good tablet. Like, I would just say it's a good tablet, but it's still, there are probably Android tablets that are just as strong on the market, and many of them. But to release on especially in terms of Apple, to my knowledge, it's really hard to kind of remove some of the devices that it's compatible with. So we would need to optimize it. So even one of the worst iPads in the world will have to work it. So that sounds like a lot of work, so I wouldn't say yes to this.
You wouldn't say yes, but you wouldn't say no specifically either, so that then lends me to think that my assumptions about the Nintendo Switch are correct. It's nothing more than a tablet with a little keychain hanging on the end of it saying console.
Yeah, but it's got Nintendo exclusives and brands, so
yeah,
it
true,
sells
and
more.
it's got a lot more than what PlayStation currently has, which is connectivity with other systems to actually play. So for as much good as it's doing, i.e. PlayStation, it's doing a lot of bad as well. So that's just my little stab at Drac and twisting the knife. It's nothing more than a tablet, Drac. Get over it, bro.
But it's a good tablet. I will not say anything against the Nintendo Switch. I love that machine, even though it's not very strong.
I love it. I do love the Nintendo Switch. My daughter's got one, and I'm just like, God, no. Why? But believe it or not, I started on Nintendo consoles, and I grew up, and, she's starting on Nintendo consoles, and when she grows up, she'll probably be playing her own console, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just waiting for Drac to have a comeback, and then I will see my response.
No, I was letting you suffer through the PS4 crossplay woes.
I know, dude, seriously, the PS4 crossplay woes, I mean, come on, like, it is so archaic to sort of hone your console to one platform. I mean, you want to experience the gaming across many, many platforms. You want there to be domination. You want there to be fun, but come on now, seriously, crossplay, come on now.
But I love that you guys are actually embracing crossplay and doing this across all these platforms. So I kind of wonder too, like what kind of challenges are you running into, or have you run into and had to overcome to make that work properly?
It's not that bad. In our case, Aftercharge runs on dedicated servers. So most of the game is happening actually on a cloud server somewhere, and your client build is talking to that server build. And in that scenario, it's quite easy to make crossplay work. What makes it a little bit harder is that, of course, the platform holders, so Nintendo and Xbox, they have a lot of criteria they want you to respect. Adding like you must have a way to disable that crossplay somewhere in the menus. That's essential to both platforms. They're like, I'm okay with it, but if my players don't want it, they must be able to remove it. So it's on by default, but if you're playing on Xbox and you don't want to be playing against PC players, you can just turn it off, and that's all fine. And there are a lot of things that you kind of need, boxes that you need to check, because that's their criterias. That's what they want, but it's not because it's hard to actually make work. It's just if you make it work, like we've actually, Nintendo Switch version isn't retail ready. We can't push it to Nintendo right now because a lot of features are unfinished. But since we can connect to the servers with our build, we can actually right now play with people on the Nintendo Switch, because we need their permission to release a game on the market that's cross-play. So they need to check if we check all the boxes. But making it just work isn't that hard on dedicated servers. I guess that peer-to-peer would be insanely difficult.
Well, Bam, are we to your, as you like to call it, your penultimate question?
No. I've got some more questions for Laurent here. Laurent, you told me before that you were from Quebec in Canada, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me, is it true? I mean, we've had some Quebecians on before, right? And they've told me these lovely stories about maple syrup.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently people drink the stuff by like the pint glasses. Is that true?
No, it's not true at all.
All right. It's also told me a story that you guys have got a storage for the stuff, as in you have huge, massive warehouses that you store maple syrup in for the end days, the end times, when everything goes to pot. You guys have maple syrup on supply, and you will never run out of it. Is that part true?
Well, maybe for some people. I don't think that's the norm. But you can, if you have a large storage area, I guess you can stack a few cans in there. But it's not like something everyone's doing.
Dude, cans? It's like 55-gallon barrels, dude, of the stuff. Apparently there was...
Maybe companies are maybe doing it. But not
No, this is the
individuals.
Quebecian government, dude. They're storing huge 55-gallon...
No.
Yes, they've got like huge, apparently. Huge barrel storages and whatever have you, and it's for the end times when there is no, God forbid, maple syrup. Now, I've had me some maple syrup, and I did enjoy it, but I wouldn't go out and necessarily store it in warehouses.
I don't think the government is doing that. I don't know who you had on that show, but he liked conspiracies.
Yeah, but
I think I might have to go Google search.
I think it might be time to take off that tinfoil hat.
That tinfoil hat stays on, son.
Never too careful.
You never know who's watching or listening. That was my cheeky question to Laurent about the Canadian maple syrup. Honestly, that was it, Drac. We can carry on with the podcast if you like.
All right. Well,
I'm always keen to find out about this maple syrup storage, because I just don't think it's physically feasible that the Quebecian part of the Canadian government are storing all these barrels of huge warehouses full of maple syrup. I'm like, why? But hey, apparently it's done. It's what's happening. Anyway.
I don't think so.
Right, Drac, it is time. Right, Drac, it is time. It is time for the penultimate question. Yes, guys, the question to end the podcast. The question to end it all. And as Stature 3, Section 2, revised asterisk and personified 1, Drac, you have got to ask the question, because G is not present.
one of these days I'm going to have to start writing this down just so that I can see all the different statutes and clauses and subsections that you bring up when you make this stuff up. But Laurent, something we like to ask everybody on the show. It's kind of just a bit of a fun question, but what kind of bacon do you like? How do you like it prepared? And what kind of beverage would you pair with said bacon, be it beer, cider, whiskey, or etc.?
I'd say that most of the time, if are we talking straight bacon, or like can have something else with it?
You can have it with any sort of garnish or any dish, because there's two types of bacon. There's back bacon and there's belly bacon. A lot of people prefer belly bacon. A lot of people like back bacon. A lot of people like bacon on burgers. What do you like?
I think the way I prefer my bacon, I like bacon a lot. I'd say it's belly bacon, and it's for breakfast. We like breakfast as Canadians. We to eat a lot at the breakfast. So I'd say breakfast bacon, and has to be a bit crispy, but not that much. I'm that disgusting. I like it a bit not crispy. And it has to be, you gotta have eggs with it, scrambled eggs, and then pancakes. Like I really like I think it's in its best scenario to have bacon at breakfast. Not that I love bacon in burgers and in many other situations, mac and cheese. It's all good, but I would have to choose bacon for breakfast. Not that crispy.
When I heard you mention pancakes, have you tried bacon pancakes?
I think I must have tried that once. It rings a bell.
Yeah,
sounds
how about
delicious.
With peanut butter and syrup?
Oh, syrup, of course. We've just talked about syrup. No. Peanut butter? No. Why do you put peanut butter on pancakes? What is this?
It's really good. If you haven't tried it, if you like peanut butter, I say give it a try and see what you think of it. But
I think about it.
Don't worry, I didn't die of anaphylactic shock when I actually tried it, because I thought Drac was a bit crazy putting the bacon stripped down and then pouring pancake batter over the bacon, cooking it all, obviously, because the bacon was pre-cooked bacon. Obviously, you cook it before you put it in the pancake or batter. Then you slap some peanut butter over it, and then you slap syrup over it. I was a bit sort of perplexed by this whole thing. Tried it. Tell you what, it's actually bloody lovely.
Nice. It does sound good.
Well, Lawrence, you told us how you like your bacon. What beverage would you enjoy to accompany said bacon down your throat, sir?
Oh, well, it's in a breakfast context, so it has to be with a black coffee, as black as possible.
I don't see a problem with that. Breakfast bacon with black coffee is a staple for many a young man.
I was just thinking about how bitter that would be.
It is. I like bitterness.
Aye, but bitter and salt go very well together.
That's the point.
It's a nice compliment. A very nice compliment.
Yeah, I'm more the salty and sweet.
That's also very good. But not in coffee.
Right, guys, thank you very much for listening to myself, Bam Havoc, Draconis, and Laurent from... I'm going to knack this name up, I swear to God.
Go for it.
I'm going to say Chainsawesome, but I don't want to say it. I'll start again. Right, guys. Right, guys, my name is Bam Havoc, and thank you very much for listening to us today. Draconis was my wingman, and thank you very much, Laurent, for joining us. Laurent, of course, is from Chainsawesome Gaming, yes, please. Hey!
And for myself, Laurent, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. I've had a chance to play a little bit After Charge. I've been having fun with it so far, and I look forward to getting into it some more.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Hey, my name is Laurent from Chainsawesome Games. I'm the community manager on Aftercharge, and I will love it if you could try that game It's a 3v3 competitive game about invisible robots fighting invincible guards. Please join our community on Discord, discord.gg/aftercharge.